Hello. Hello, everyone. I'm Yvette Rodriguez. I'm a member of the Academy in the Public Relations Branch, and I'd like to welcome you to the Pacific Standard Time LA screening of Stand and Deliver, part of the Academy's screening series that has been taking place all fall. I would like to thank the Getty and Bank of America for sponsoring this incredibly important program that highlights our Latino films, filmmakers, actors. We thank you very much. I don't know if you're in the room, but thank you. It's so important what you're doing. You just saw the trailer for Alejandro González Iñárritu's first film, Amores Perros. And this Monday, we will be screening the film at the Academy in Beverly Hills. And tonight, we're going to be giving away free tickets to that screening. So on your way out, if you would like to see the film, we have those tickets. And we also have a special performance by Academy-nominated composer Gustavo Santaolalla. I always say that name wrong. And actress Goya Toledo. So come join us on Monday. And tonight, I'm excited that we have members of the cast and crew of Stand and Deliver here. So stick around after the film, and we will join you afterwards for a panel discussion. Thank you for being here. Wasn't that great? I'd like to call the following down. Tonight with us we have Tom Muska, producer and co-writer. Edward James Olmos. Woo! Lou Diamond Phillips. Right there. Tony Livingston Hicks, casting director. Patrick Baca. Will Gauthier. Carla Montana Oriel. Lydia Nicole. Ingrid Olu. And Daniel Villarreal. Okay, well, and in the audience tonight, we also have the composer, Craig Saffin. Hody Olmos as well in the audience. We don't have enough room for you. I was. Were you? Well, we could. Oh, I think there's one right at the end. Oh, okay.
Butzker goes all the way in.
Well, we're going to start with Tom. Tom, can you please let us know how this film came to be? Just if we can start right there.
I was in UCLA Film School, and I worked. Woo! Did we win tonight? Who won the game? I don't know. Who?
Don't say that.
I'm glad I was at the movie then. All right. Anyway, I was in UCLA Film School, and I was working with a gentleman who is abroad and would be here if he could. His name is Ramon Menendez. We had done a number. Yeah. Let's hear it for Ramon Menendez, the director. And we had done a number of projects together, students, and then this article popped up in the LA Times, and he said to me, "What do you think?" I said, "Well, I think there's a movie there." And went over and saw Mr. Jaime Escalante, who thought we were going to do a little 5-minute video of him at the blackboard. And then we eventually sent a treatment to American Playhouse and got them interested. And then Ramon and I took probably the best visit we ever took to a gentleman on the other side of this thing named Edward James Olmos. And we saw him. He was working in Miami Vice. And we said, "Eddie, do you want to play Jaime Escalante when you have a break?" You had your shooting a break in the spring, I think. When did we shoot this? You remember? February? We shot in February. Okay. And Eddie said, could be interesting. And we showed up at his house in Florida, and that was the beginning of moving this thing forward.
And Eddie, you had heard of Jaime prior to this script landing at your desk, is that right?
Yeah, I actually met him in June. They passed the examination in May of 1983. In June of 1983, him and I were given by the NAACP. I got the Humanitarian Award for the year, and he got Teacher of the Year. And then we were so happy to be together. We were standing up there. We met each other. We were very happy. We were celebrating. And then in August, the report came back that they were accused of cheating. They had gotten a lot of exposure before. In May and June, the newspapers across the country were giving them accolades that were unbelievable because they had outdone the scores of even Stuyvesant and some of the biggest schools in the country. They had the highest scores. And so they were like the whole world shook. Because it is only 3% of all the students in the country, seniors in the country, take that examination. And only 3% of that 3% pass it. It's a very difficult exam, and any of you that have taken it, you understand what I'm talking about. But at that time, so when they got them and accused them of cheating, there was 4 times the amount of press to sink them. That was just unbelievably difficult. and it was so harsh on these kids that the scene, you know, the scene where he goes and talks to the ETS, that was all exactly what he said and what he did. He repeated exactly what went down that day, and it was so sad because they only gave him 1 day to prepare, and the test was harder than any test given in advanced placement at that time ever in this country. They really nailed him, and you saw the scores. They came back, and they all passed. It was a miracle.
Incredible. So then, once Tom, you met with Eddie, and then what was the next step? When did Lou Diamond get in the mix here? Like, what was the process?
Lou had done La Bamba, had been picked. He was, but that movie had not come out. I believe Eddie.
It had not come out. I knew Lou
Eddie told us something about Lou.
Yeah, no. Can I give it from that side?
Roll, baby.
So I had done La Bamba. I made scale on that film, like we all made on Stand and Deliver, by the way. And I was out of money. I was going to have to move back to Texas. And in December of '86, it was December of '86. I landed a guest star spot on Miami Vice. And showed up in Miami in this wonderful role. By the way, the episode is called Red Tape. Viggo Mortensen plays my partner who gets blown up in the first 5 minutes. And Annette Bening is the girlfriend of the bad guy.
Oh my God.
That's how hip Miami Vice was in those days. You know, I mean, no, seriously, man. You know, anybody on their way up went through there. And I had one scene with Eddie, and he knew that I had done La Bamba. It was in the can. Had done Zoot Suit with, you know, Luis Valdez and Danny Valdez. I couldn't get a job in Hollywood because I was this unknown kid from Texas playing a, you know, obscure Mexican rock and roll star, you know, with a negative pickup through Colombia. You know, so no, I wasn't lighting the world on fire. And the movie wasn't out yet. And so Eddie and I did this scene together, and in his graciousness, literally after we finished the scene, he goes, "What are you doing next month?" I went, "Nothing, man. You want to have lunch, you know?" And he writes down a number, and he says, "You call this number. You call this number when you get back to L.A." So I call the number, and it's Ramon and Tom. And I go in and meet and audition, and, you know, I was the second person into the cast. So
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Really, the expertise came by way of Tony and her casting abilities. She did the entire casting of everybody else. You talk a little bit about
I'd
that.
love to hear you talk
Hello.
a little bit, Tony.
Well, the most interesting thing about the show is that Ramon and Tom came to us and they said they would hire us if we were willing to go into the barrio. Barrio, and I was yes. So I said, "You mean, well, East LA schools?" Okay, so we got that, and of course we were willing to go anywhere, you know. So we did go, and we tried to work with kids in high school. Now, mind you, these are a lot of high schools with no theater program, so these kids were freaked out of their minds. They didn't know how to read a script. They were too scared to do anything. So basically, we went back to the office saying, you know, there's a lot of Latino actors who basically have been playing gang members for most of their careers, and let's give them a shot, you know, at playing smart kids. So that's basically what we did. We called all the agents, asked for all the kids that were in this particular age range. We had Lou. We knew what he looked like. We knew that we had to find the youngest looking person so that they could all kind of blend, and you could believe that they were sophomores in high school, which is a hard thing to do. So, but it was a long process. They were very picky. We had a lot of callbacks. A lot of it was just see how they look together. Do they look like a class? Do they look like they could hang out together? Do they look like they like each other? Do they hate each other? So it was a wonderful process. It's a casting director's delight, actually, because you're almost starting from scratch, and you're like creating this team. So it was very enjoyable for me, and I love them, and I can't believe they're all grown up, and it's a frightening thing.
One of the things I'd like to say, there was one gentleman here that really saved us. There was a part of his head man, the finger man, And it was very difficult to cast because the reality at that moment in time was very, very difficult. We had not done American Me yet. That was done in '91. This was done in '87. So to capture the authenticity of the barrio, we needed an authentic gentleman to lead the gang. And Danny Villarreal, who's sitting right there, was in the room, and he was our PA. Yeah. He was our production assistant. We only had 2, I think. I don't think we could afford any more. And he was there, and he was working and working, and we were rehearsing, and we had a young man. He was very good. He ended up playing the young man who originally was cast in the role, played my older son. My younger son was played by my son, Bodie Olmos, who's sitting out here. Stand up, Bodie. Say hello. Bodie! There he is. And in Dire Needs, in all my principal films, my family has always helped me. They've come in and taken on the responsibility of acting in the movies, and you know, they've been wonderful. And when Danny was standing there, and I was talking with Danny in between the rehearsals and stuff, and he was solid from East LA. I mean, really down to earth, very solid kid. And I said, "Hey, man, can you help me, man?" And he goes, "Sure, what do you want me to do?" I said, "Come over here for a second, man." And Tom and Ramon, they wondered. I said, "No, let's just read this with us." Remember that?
I was there, man.
I know.
I know. It gives me chills to think about it. And the other thing that I want to point out is up until this point, like I said, I'm from Texas, man. You know, I was a Navy kid. I didn't know a cholo from a churro, you know? And freaking Danny took me on ride-arounds. Every day he would drive me around East LA. He'd show me the real deal. He'd show me the places. We'd talk. We'd hang out. You know, and he was my research. So when this happened, I couldn't have been happier.
All of us, we were all very moved by it. I remember when we were rehearsing the scenes, and we were all in the room. We were everybody was scared because basically it was a very difficult reality that we're trying to hit, and none of us had really worked together, and we were all extremely young. The director's first movie, Tom was that was your first film too? That's right.
The editor, the DP.
I mean, we were all first film, everybody. Wow! Get a load of this. I'm going to just say this once, and it's an accolade that I must say that it made me cry when I started to understand this moment in time. This film is the single most viewed film in the history of film in the United States of America, bar none. There's, you know. I don't get Jaws, E.T., you know, Godfather. It'd be Gone with the Wind like 15 years ago. You know, it's amazing accolade. Why? Because teachers all over America use it every year. And millions of kids see it every year. Most of you saw it in school.
No, I love the fact that I'm looking out here, and we made this film before some of you were born, and that's great. It's excellent.
There's a teacher here. Could you stand up? He saw it when he was a kid, and he became a teacher. Aww. Yeah.
I often applaud teachers who tell me, "Man, I use the film every year. I've been using it for 30 years, ever since I saw it." And I said, "Wow," because I applaud them, because to have the courage of showing this film in your classroom, and then after it's over, you get up and start to teach. That's really takes an awful lot of courage to do that. Yeah, it takes a lot of ganas because it's inspiring to the students, but it really motivates the teacher, and it really makes the students also motivated. So anyway,
Thank you, Eddie. So it's hard to believe that this film was shot 30 years ago.
Today.
Is that right?
30 years ago.
How many days did you take to shoot this? Do you remember? 25?
30 days.
I thought we were less than that, but okay, I'll take 30.
And what's really super interesting about this film as well is actually the budget, the original plan for the film. It was going to run on PBS, and
It did.
And it did. And then you went to Mill Valley, and then Warner Brothers
They bought it.
bought the film and released it. Can you just speak a little bit to your experience? I mean, it's really extraordinary, right? That a little film like this had that kind of trajectory.
We negotiated a window for the theatrical release prior to the PBS showing. So we had, they gave us, I think, 2 years, and Warner Brothers used it, put the film, it still plays, you know. Like I said, like Eddie would say, every substitute teacher in a math class who doesn't know how to teach math walks in and just puts it on. And then it was even featured in the movie Bad Teacher.
Yes.
It was. Yeah. It's amazing, though, some of the things that happened on set. Lou, do you remember the scene, the one with your grandmother, where you're doing your homework? Do you remember that night? That was a scene we cut. We ran out of time one day, and then we're at the end of the schedule, and I looked at Ramon and I said, you know, we're moving pretty fast today. Why don't we try that scene? So I went out.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I went out in the streets, and I knocked on a door and found a family, and they were illegals. And I said, you know, we'll give you a few $100 if you let us come and shoot a film in your place tonight, and we'll put you up in a motel. So we hit their place at about 11 o'clock at night. And you're there with your grandmother at the scene, and you're shooting. And do you remember what happened? No, you don't. So at about
tucking in the shirt?
What? Tuck in the shirt scene.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's 1:30 in the morning, and we're all there, and we're all exhausted. And all of a sudden, we do a take, and the sound got ruined because there was some noise we couldn't identify. And it happened twice. And then I walked over to the closet in that room and opened the door, and the entire family was sitting in a closet. And they had taken the money we had given them to go to a motel and put it in their pocket because they needed the money. And I thought somehow that scene crystallized the type of people we were making this film for. They sat there for 4 hours, 6 members of a family, not saying a word, not going to the bathroom. Wow. And, you know, that's the kind of experiences we had during the making of the film. I think we all knew, if I'm not mistaken, you answered. We felt we were making something special. We didn't know what.
We all felt this.
Patrick, go ahead.
Most definitely.
Oh yeah, for sure.
What amazes me?
One scene, the scene we had where I went to her house right before the test. We ended up shooting, I don't know how many times we shot that scene, like maybe I think 14, 15 times, because you see in the background they're playing a baseball game. Yeah. And
Ramon yelled at me because I didn't have enough extras, so I went out and started playing softball.
Every time they were shooting, somebody was getting hurt, and an ambulance was going by, and everything was going, and they were going, God, what is going on?
And then your car died.
And then the car died, yeah. The car didn't have, remember, Eddie, the car didn't have seats. We were actually sitting on buckets, and it was a screwdriver that he was shifting with.
It was 4 o'clock in the morning when we were doing the kissing scene, and we had the director in our crotch.
Do it again.
Looking up.
Do it again! Do it again!
Ramon.
More time.
My favorite, really quick, my favorite, speaking of Ramon, Latino film, obviously. We're all, and at this time, except for Eddie, we're all unknown. La Bamba's not out yet. They actually, the cops had to escort me to and from set because I was wearing the wrong colors for certain neighborhoods. You know, so yeah, God knows what could have gone wrong there. But Ramon and Tom, you know, these guys have such a level of taste, such a level of artistry. But, you know, we're a young cast, it's a Latino movie, you know, and we're all so freaking emotional that every single one of us probably cried every other take. And Ramon used to come in his Cuban accent and go, "You're milking it! You're milking it!" And we did it so often that he stopped even saying that. He would just come in and glare at us and go.
and then go like this with his glasses. Because it's funny. I remember once, I'll tell you a quick thing. It was my first film, and I wasn't really good at memorizing a lot, so I would tape my lines on people's backs and on the floor. And so once Ramon came, he was shooting, and it was a close-up, and he called me, like, looked down, and he stopped, and he said, "What are you doing?" And then he looked down, and he goes, "Have you been doing that a lot?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Good for you." Because he couldn't tell. He couldn't tell. It's very funny.
So Lydia and Carla, what do you when you were making the film? Did you know that that it would be so special? Did you experience that?
Well, I knew it was going to be an Oscar contender when I read the script.
When I read the script, I said, this is Oscar. This is it. I had never read anything so good. Not for us. I mean, I've read stuff for class, but not as an actor. You know, it was pretty amazing. And to see Eddie transform every morning. He would sit in the chair 2 to 3 hours to get that look.
4.5.
Oh, 4.5 to get that look. It was very impressive.
Yeah. 4.5 hours to put it on and an hour and a half to take it off. Wow. Every day.
Yeah, I mean, same here. I knew right away that it was. I actually remember an article in the LA Times with you and Ramon, and then I had an audition like shortly afterwards. So.
You auditioned for Anna. Do you remember that?
I
you
did.
came in for that role, and Ramon and I
Yeah.
looked at each other and says, that's not Anna. You were...
I was shocked. I was like, what do you mean? I can play the smart, girl. But yeah, I mean, just it was such an amazing experience. Just I had never gotten a rehearsal time like we did. We really got to know each other, and our chemistry just worked, and just I mean, like Eddie was just like master class for us all, and we were all fairly green, all of us, if not completely green. Yeah.
If I could jump in for one thing, like I said, it was my first film, but I read for it once, and then I would go in, and Tom and Ramon would stare at me in the room. And of course, I'm the only one that had, well, as far as I know, I didn't have any acting experience, but I knew that the film was kind of a sign for me because I had actually been accused of cheating in a test for Culinary Institute of America. I'm a chef. And when I applied for the test, I scored really high, and they accused me of cheating, and I had to take the test again. And one of my teachers in Jersey drove me up to the Culinary Institute in Hyde Park, New York, and I had to retest, and I tested again, and I scored higher. But financially, I couldn't go. That's when I joined the military and came out here, and it's been great ever since. But that was kind of my sign on how I knew I was gonna, it was kind of weird that I got involved in the film, and I said, I can do this, I can do this.
Most people really, the one thing that they really want to know is what happened to the students after, and that's really the biggest question. And do you guys know what happened to your students? Everybody, I know that your student, the man he was portraying, the young man he was portraying, ended up being a colonel, lieutenant colonel in the Air Force. He was a jet fighter pilot. That's where he ended up. But do you guys know what happened?
I know that, I believe, I'm not sure about the timing. I think that, I thought it was pretty loud. I believe that the timing was that her real life character and my real life character passed away within, I think, a week or two of each other. Am I right?
One did pass. What we did was we interviewed about 5 years worth of students, and then we created a lot of composites to make an ensemble, I think, work.
Because I remember Jaime told me, you're Martin, tú eres Martin, when he saw me in the classroom.
Yeah, Martin passed away while we were out there.
Yeah.
And some of it, like with Lou's character, that was part of the conversation with Tom and Ramon when we would go over the writing, because that was like my story when I was a kid. It was me and my grandma, and the whole thing about doing math. Because I graduated with honors in math when I was in junior high, and when I went to get my certificate, I was so high. I don't remember any of it.
Don't do that at home, folks. Don't do it at home.
Kids, go to school, don't do drugs.
You were going to say so.
I have one little story about the girl that played Anna. That was the one thing we had the movie advertised in one of the trade papers, and we were looking for these kids, and I was desperate to find somebody original and not an actor. Blah, blah. So this girl sent me a letter with her high school picture in it, and that was Vanessa, who played Anna, and she says in there that the character that I described was her. Aww. So I said, I have to bring her in. because first of all, they have to see she looked like a sophomore, even though she just graduated. She was so young looking. I said, they have to see how young a high school student is. So I brought her in, and I had her read the material outside of my office, and she came in, and she read it, and she would look at the paper, read it, and then look up at me. I said, now, can you take this home? Can you reverse that? Can you, not look at me when you're reading the lines? Okay. And then she came back, and sure enough, she did exactly that. And she brought in to the audition with Eddie and the director, she brought school books. She sat there, and she had her paper in her hand, and she said, I don't need this. I said, okay. And she was Anna. And she told me that Mr. Olmo said he took her hand and put it in his pocket. He said, I will take care of you. You just listen to what I say. And so the
real Anna worked in our family. She would come and babysit the kids, and she was going to college. And when she graduated from college, she went on to become a very high executive in Pennzoil. She became an engineer, and she was very smart. Anna was very, very smart. Anita.
The other story that I heard, which I loved, was that Vanessa, on her first audition, had to catch 3 buses.
Oh, 3 buses.
Yeah, 3 buses from where she was working at Burger King in East LA to get to the audition in Hollywood.
She didn't tell me the first time.
She was. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Yeah. The second time when she came back for the callbacks, she said, well, I have to figure out how to get here on time. I said, well, how far do you live? She told me. I was, oh my gosh, do you drive? She goes, no, I have to take buses. But then
she came from Montebello,
yeah.
Which is like way out there.
Way out.
Yeah.
Way out there. East of East LA.
Way, way out there.
Yeah.
Like George Lopez would say, like, over there.
And when I called her to tell her she got the part, it was the loudest screech and the highest screech I had ever heard in my whole life. It was like, oh, so loud. But, yeah.
Yeah, I was working with Tony doing the casting because I was a PA. And I was behind the camera taping all the students. Like Ray came in, Ray Oriel. Stand up, Ray.
Yeah, yay.
He's married to Carla.
He's
married to Carla.
We met at the audition for Stand Up.
Yeah. Hook up. So I was videotaping all the actors that came in. And when Vanessa came in, I was like, all right, she's Anna. And the same with Patrick. When Patrick came in, it was like, all right, forget it. Like, he's got the part.
Yeah.
And this one, oh, no. It took forever to get this guy. He helped me with my audition. Yeah.
We all did, cabrón.
Yeah, we went in the back.
But we went out into the alley.
Yeah. He helped me come up with the 1s and the 2s and the 3s.
I did that a lot.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I'm a good boy. I don't do that kind of stuff.
When this film came out, it was very impactful, not only because of the subject matter, but for to see a Latino film on the big screen was very exciting. But unfortunately, here we are 30 years later. 2 things come to mind. Number 1, racism and discrimination is alive and well 30 years later, if not more.
In the White House, yeah.
And also, here we are, and we still don't see films about our community. And I don't, well, maybe I know why, but Mr. Olmos, would you like to elaborate? What do you think about where we are today as a Latino community in Hollywood? And I know it's a big question.
Being pragmatic, I mean, because basically I'm not being pessimistic, but I will be pragmatic. We are, 30 years ago, we were less than 2% of the images that you see on screen and in television and on theater. Today, we're less than 4%. but we were like 30 years ago, we were like at 27 million people, Latinos in the United States of America at that time. And today, we're past 60 million, but they haven't said it yet. The last census they took, they put us at 55 million, but we're well over 60 million. We were well over 60 million in 2010. But now I think we're in worse shape than we were 30 years ago, because there's so much more of us, and we're still not part of the understanding of storytelling. You just cannot tell stories using people, minorities. You can't. Indigenous people, Asian Americans, Latinos, African Americans are 12% of the population, and they are 17% of the images that you see. That's excellent. That's how they are. We should be at least at 15, 15, 15, 15, with, say 25% non-ethnic. Caucasians should handle storytelling like they have, but that we should be able to understand stories told by indigenous people, of Asian people, Asian American people, their stories. It's a story. I mean, the reason that this hit us so hard, and she says it was Academy Award time, we didn't know whether it was going to be Academy Award time or not, man. It was like the furthest thing from our heads. I mean, basically for me, I was just happy to tell this story, and that Jaime would allow me to go into his house and his home. I'll tell you one story that's still to this moment, because he was an amazing human being, and it still makes me cry when I think about him. He was such a giving man. I went into his house, and it was about the day before we were going to start principal photography, and I was at with myself and Fabiola, his wife, and myself and Jaime. And we were sitting at the table, his dining room table, and I'd been there many times, and I'd just watching, always observing in his classroom. I spent a lot of time with him. And he was sitting there, and I asked him, I said, I got one more question, and I turned to Fabiola, and I said, what's the hardest truth you've had to live with in dealing with Jaime? And she looked at me without even blinking, and she says that he wants to be buried with a picture of his children. And Jaime's head was down like this. The table was here. His hands were underneath the table. He was leaning against it, so his face was close to the table. And I saw the tears that were running like water and hitting the table. And I realized that what she said was he wanted the picture of his children with him when he died. Not the picture of his children and his family. He wanted a picture of his children. And she said, and she just proudly said it. And it just destroyed me. We couldn't even use it. I told Tom and Ramon about that. And I said, we can't use that. We can't. There's just no way are we going to go there. Because that, it's just like it was intense. It was a beautiful experience, but it was very real and very honest. Because Jaime he didn't miss one day of shooting. Yeah. He was there every day. And I would get done in a scene, and he would be watching me doing the scene, and be standing over the corner like this, and then I'd be done with the scene, and he'd go. Like, okay. Go on from there.
The scene that Eddie alluded to earlier, the educational testing service scene, did happen, and it happened a lot the way it's depicted. But when Jaime read the script, he had a major objection to the line we had written when he said, if I catch you on the street, I'm going to beat the shit out. He did not say that. And I said, Jaime, come to the set. If you don't want it, it won't be in the movie. I said, okay. And you remember, and then we did the scene, and you did the scene, we'll catch you on the street, we're going to beat the shit out of you. And he looked at me, I looked at him, and he goes,
if I can weigh in on that other question too, it's interesting because at that time, we had La Bamba, we had Stand and Deliver, El Norte, Salvador. It was a period in time where all of a sudden everybody was proclaiming that the Latin wave, you know, in filmmaking had arrived, that, you know, we were going to see, you know, Latinos take their place in the pantheon of cinema. And then it died. It went away. It comes back every few years. One of the reasons it comes back is people like, you know, Edward James Olmos right here, that I also did Philly Brown with, you know, that you did American Me. I mean, Eddie tells stories of culture, tells stories of his community, and makes them universal and makes them American stories, which is what they are. When he said the line, "You are the true dreamers," knowing what our dreamers, DACA, is going through right now, man, it just almost brought tears to my eyes again. It is so sad that this movie is as relevant today as it was then, in respect to where we are in our race relations and in our politics and in how we treat one another. I've been fortunate to represent a number of those communities, Asian American and Native American, because I'm a mutt. I'm an American, you know, and I've been really honored to do that throughout my career. But what it takes, and there's a conversation going on in this country now, and maybe that is the silver lining to all of this, to this dark, dark cloud that is over us, and that is we are talking more. We are galvanized, we are motivated, we are out there in the streets trying to make a difference. We realize that our voices still matter, that things that drove us and drove the filmmakers to make a movie like this still matter, and they matter more than ever, and we have to do that. But what we need, especially in the film community, I'm going to say that there are more opportunities for Latino actors than there were then. You're seeing a few more on television. You're seeing, you know, their specific casting. There are more Latino stars than there were then. Yes. You know, and I think that's a very, very positive thing. What we now need are more Latino writers and directors and producers and people telling those stories, saying, no, this is not a niche story. This is not just an art house story. This is a story that has universal appeal and will appeal not only to all of America, but globally. And to start thinking in respect to that. And that is what we need. And one of the things that I spoke at NYU a few years after this film came out, and a young Puerto Rican actress stood up, tears in her eyes, and said, "I finally saw people who looked like me up on the screen." And that's what we need, is we need to, for you out there and those of you who are interested in film and whatnot, to understand that it can be done, that you can be a first-time filmmaker, a first-time actor, a first-time anything, but you can get it done. And that you have to get out there and apply yourself and do it, because many people sitting up here have proved that it can be done, and that you have to now take the reins and you have to make your voice heard. And we need you. We need you more than we ever have.
Amen. And I want to add to that. What we have today that we didn't have 30 years ago is we have cameras on your phones, we have computers, we have tablets. You can go make your movie without having to get a big budget. So there's no excuse for us to do our own projects today, where 30 years ago, we didn't really have that option. That, you know, if you didn't go through the studio, I think this was probably one of the first independent Latino films that came out in the 80s. Because if it didn't come through the studios, you didn't get it made. So you guys have that ability right now. You with that camera, all of you can make your little film. There's a man who made a film called Tangerine that ended up getting nominated, and he did it on his iPhone. So there's no excuse. I mean, we could talk about what we don't have, but you now have it in your hands. So all you have to come up with is a story that's compelling enough that can go to the Oscars. We need more Stand and Delivers.
Yes, and you can start by looking at history. That's where you get information. You look at our history, American history, and you will find them. Hidden figures. How many people knew there were black women in the NASA program? How many? Well, I was a history major, and the stories are there. They just need to come out, and it needs, you need to just find those little gems, and that's how things like this get made.
Not only that, I mean, I know Danny's he's prepping a film right now, Brother Jonas, I just wrote and directed a film, Chateau Vato, this summer, and it's probably 1/4 of the price of Stand and Deliver 30 years later because of what Lydia's talking about. The gatekeepers have shrunk back. There are cameras, computers. You can make the same type of film we made there now for 1/4 of the price that we made that on film. So you have the means of making movies in your
And we'll be in your film too. Just ask. We'll come be in your film. We're available.
So they're all available. I don't see Julie. Is there anything else that you would like to share with this audience? I know that we have a short time for this panel, so if there's any parting words.
I'd just like to say that to remember to encourage your children. Encourage them to have their own voice and to become their own person. And I think that when you do that, then you'll really be surprised as to what they can become and who they really are instead of what you think they should become, because I think that's a big problem in the Latino community.
I'd like to just ask a favor of all of the students that are here from Bell Gardens and from Santa Ana schools. Please stand up.
Where are you?
Can you please stand?
Yeah!
Woo! Take a good look at these students, okay? Take a good look at them. Excellent. These students are all in the Youth Cinema Project.
Woo! Yes!
They are all making their own films. They started in grammar school, through junior high and through high school. The Youth Cinema Project has now been going now for, well, we started in 1998, but it really took off about 4 years ago. And now we're in 19 school districts throughout the state of California and over 2,000 children.
That's incredible.
If you look at them, now not all of them want to be filmmakers. Some of them will. Some of them will definitely move on in a way that they've never been, that our film system has never been ready for, because they're really getting an advanced understanding of filmmaking. They're getting everything from the conception of the story, through treatment, through script, through production, post-production, marketing, distribution, how to build your LLC. And by the time they're out of high school, it was a funny thing, because we now have a pathway from Santa Ana. It gets 10 students are going to go from this group. They will go into Chapman University with a full scholarship for 4 years. And each year, over the next 4 years, each year, Chapman will add on another 10. So within 4 years, there will be 40 students coming out of Santa Ana. We're trying to set up the same situation with UCLA and SC and different schools. But I'm so proud of them, because they're going to show you, your films will be shown in May of this year, correct? You guys be ready. Now, how many of you, sit down. You guys can sit. Sorry, they're going to stand there. God. How many of you, is this your first year in the program? How many of you second year in the program? How many have been 3 years in the program? How many have been 4 years in the program?
Nope.
Okay. So you got to realize that they started in the 4th grade. When you see 4th graders get the experience of finding their voice,
oh, that's great.
It's amazing. It brings solid tears of unbelievables to the grown-ups that watch the program. The entire AFI came, the executive director, all of the heads of the school, all the different departments came, and they were experiencing it. And they went and they said, Bob Gazelle says, Ed, this is the most advanced understanding of teaching I've seen in the 21st century. And it's nothing more than showing them how to make a film. The whole perspective. We took exactly what they're doing at AFI and we're giving it to them in the 4th grade.
Cool.
It's like teaching you a language. They teach you a language in this country starting in the 10th grade. It's way too late. You got to start teaching the language in the first grade, second grade, third grade. When we started teaching them how to use the language of cinema and storytelling and collaboration and communication and creative thinking, critical thinking, and creativity, those four, the Common Core, we try to teach that through usage of English. They try to teach it in math. They try to teach Common Core in different science, and they can't do it. Not like you can do it when you're teaching kids how to sit around a table in groups of 6, and they learn how to produce, they learn how to direct, they learn how to do the camera, they learn how to do the sound, they learn how to do the editing. They learn it all. They're learning all the aspects of it. And yeah, some of them become first ADs, other of them become, I want to be the director, I want to produce it, I want to be the actor. A lot of actors. And boy, I'll tell you, what they've learned is creativity, critical thinking, communication, and collaboration. By the time they get out of the 4th grade at the highest level, they come out like kids that have come out of this program are way ahead of any kids that are in their grade class. And not that they're smarter. I'm not saying that they're, they're smarter kids. No, they just have a sense of self-worth, self-esteem, and self-respect that they cannot get any other way. So I'm very proud that they're here tonight. I hope you guys realize that this is a very different. How many of you guys had seen the movie before? Raise your hands. That's good. That's good. I was going to say, what's wrong with your teacher? No. No. I just know that this is happening. And there are over 2,000 kids in the program right now. So you know that next year, this year from last year, we augmented 300%. We have the directors of Janelle, Bodie, and is Raphael here tonight? He's not here? Yeah, he is. Raphael's here. Raphael, please stand. Bodie, again, stand. He's a manager. Janelle, she's she does all of our curriculum and does all of our classes. Where's Raphael? Oh, and Sergio. Sergio's here. Is Raphael here? No. These are the people who actually do the intensive work of going throughout the entire state, making sure that everyone is up to the standard. Because we have, what it is, we have 32, I think we have 32 mentors right now, coming out of AFI, coming out of NYU, coming out of SC, coming out of UCLA, coming out of the different film schools throughout the United States. They come in for 90 minutes during the class. During the school class, not after school special, during the class, right during the class. We break after doing English, they go, boom, okay, 90 minutes, you're gonna make your films. Their brains explode. And then they go back and they're willing to go back into, doing math, doing science, they're dying to get home and continue to work on their programs, and they're greater, they actually, it motivates them throughout the entire school year to a higher level. And I got to tell you, I really applaud Bodie, Janelle, Sergio, Raphael, because there are 32 mentors that have given themselves to this program. 90 minutes, twice a week for the entire school year.
Great. That's awesome.
That's too much, I'm telling you. When Bob Gazelle and AFI came to the program, Bob Gazelle said to me, "We want this program. We want to bring this to the country." I said, "You know what, Bob? I'm on the board of trustees of AFI." I said, "Bob, you guys are the American Film Institute. This is coming. The Cinema Project is the Latino Film Institute. The Latino Film Institute has to bring this to the American public. We need people to say, oh, the Latinos brought this to our children. Latinos helped us get to this level of understanding. Thank you, Latinos, for giving us this one point of entry into the world that we didn't have before you guys were there."
Yeah.
I wouldn't give it to them. And not only wouldn't give it to them, in turn they became one of our sponsors. So they were very good. But it was really funny because the head of the production house came in and he was standing there and he says to me, he says, "Man, you're teaching them what we teach our students." I said, "Yeah, but we're teaching in the 4th grade." It's a lot different. They're going to gain a lot more than they're going to get. You know, by the time you get into AFI, you're one of 16 groups that are allowed to be in AFI for the first year. The second year, you're only eight groups work out their films. So go from 16 to 8, and only 8 graduate. It's tough. AFI is tough. But at the same time, I got to tell you, these kids, I love you guys for doing this, and you guys have been given a great opportunity. I'm telling you right now, Santa Ana, it was the sponsoring group. That school system, that school district, was the school district that started us off 4 years ago. They said, yeah, we want you. Come on. We want you over here. And so Santa Ana was the first place. And then Bell Gardens in Montebello. They jumped in. And they're both here, and I'm very proud that they're here. And they're teachers. Are there teachers here? Where are the teachers? Stand up, man. Say hello. Stand up. You guys should take your bows, teachers. Please, stand up. Yeah. Without you guys, we have absolutely nothing. Thank you guys so much, you know, from the bottom of us.
Well, thank you. I want to thank everyone for being here this evening. And Eddie received an Oscar nomination for his performance in Stand and Deliver. And we all owe him a debt. I mean, Eddie, thank you so much for sharing that. It's inspiring, and you have done so much for our community. And I just want to thank you and thank everyone for being here. But thanks, Eddie. I mean, that's an incredible program.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Thank you very much.